Today we are welcoming Simon Cox here. Simon Cox is a director, producer, writer and editor with his own production company, AlphaStar Productions. He is known for Invasion Planet Earth, Of Infinite Worlds and Driven, and he has also been nominated for a BAFTA TV Award. So everyone, please can you welcome Simon Cox.
Thank you.
What inspired you to pursue a career in film?
Like you lot, I was very enthusiastic about film as a kid, and when the original Star Wars came out in the 70s, I was 13, 14, and it had such a huge impact on me. I'd always, we didn't have a lot of, we're so inundated with sci-fi and special effects and action films now, but life was a lot more mundane back then. And we had comics, like we had the Marvel comics, we had Spider-Man and Hulk and all that sort of stuff, which I really liked. But the UK, we had Doctor Who, and it was all very English and very proper. But American culture really started to set in the 70s, and we had things like Lands of the Giants and the $6 Million Man and Buck Rogers in the 21st century, and all these kind of things came along. But then when Star Wars came along, we'd never seen anything like it. And I remember being in the cinema just like boggle-eyed at this incredible event. I'd never seen anything like it. And I remember just thinking, I want to do that. And I didn't really know what that was, but I wanted to do it. I wanted to be part of that world. So that was really what inspired me to get into film. And I left school, trained as a chef, as you do, but I really wanted to get into films, and managed to get my foot in the door and get into the film industry.
Amazing, thank you. And what has been the highlight of your career so far?
Oh my word. Okay, I've had lots of adventures, which is what you have. You work in the film industry, you tend to be self-employed. So you go from one job, you go to another, and that finishes, you go to another. In my case, I've managed to get a film up, so I'd go and do that, and then I go and edit a TV series, or I'd do all these different sort of things. But the highlight for me, I think, you were there actually, I have to say. I made an independent film called Invasion Planet Earth. And I kind of left London. I moved to the Midlands, we got married, had kids, and I felt my film industry days were slightly behind me, and I was only in my mid-30s. But the passion to make films was very, very strong. I still had that Star Wars moment in my heart, and I really wanted to go out and make a movie. So I'd learned to write as part of, I realised that if you want to make a film, you've got to write it. That's the best way in. After this, we'd had young kids, and I didn't see much chance of me getting on, but I wrote a script, and I thought, I'd made a feature film already, and I thought, if I'm going to make a feature film again, because they're really hard making feature films, if I'm going to do it again, at least I'm going to make the movie I want to make, which was sci-fi. I wanted to do the Star Wars thing. And so I wrote a film, which at the time was called Kaleidoscope Man, and I just set about, I was determined to make it. I didn't realise it would take me nearly 20 years. But I stuck with it, I worked very hard on it and built this thing up. And I think the highlight for me was when I managed to convince Birmingham Council to let me close off the centre of Birmingham and bring tanks and soldiers and extras. We managed to get 900 extras turning up. We got 2 tanks, an armoured personnel carrier, a jeep, with a machine gun on the back, and about 50 soldiers with machine guns in central Birmingham, as you do, and shoot this incredibly huge War of the Worlds, alien ships attacking Birmingham. And it took a lot of setting up, and we shot the big bit in one evening, but I shot a lot of times little tiny bits to sort of insert in. But after that first evening, I just couldn't believe I'd done it. It was just like the greatest moment of my life, apart from the kids, of course. Having a family was one thing, but I just thought, I did it, and I kind of felt like it's a bit sad this, I felt I'd resurrected my career after, having moved up to the Midlands, and it set the bar very high for the rest of the film, so it just carried on. We got the film finished eventually, and got it out into cinemas and things, so I was very, very proud of that achievement. So that's probably the highlight. And you were there, running around.
It was very
this
fun.
big she was.
Also, you wrote, produced, and directed and edited this film, which is amazing. So watch it if you haven't. How did you balance all of these roles?
That's a very good question. Having worked in the industry, I've been an editor for about 20 years. I've really learned. I worked in kids' TV actually. I worked on a lot of children's TV, like cartoons and model animation, TV shows. They were very short films, and it really taught me how to kind of put films together, the sort of technical process and the writing part as well. And I literally just said to myself, I'm going to do this. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to do this. And I wrote the script, went through lots of different variants of that, and I was chasing around trying to raise money, and it was getting harder and harder. And anyway, I found a way to do it. It took a long time, but I found a way to get it going. I've forgotten the question. What was the question I've going on for my head?
It was about balancing these roles.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So that was it really. I thought I'll get the script written. We won't. I couldn't really do it in one big block because I was producing it and directing it. So I did it in phases, and the nature of the story. The guy and the girl come together at the beginning, have a conversation. She goes one way, he goes another, and then they eventually come together at the end, or will they come together at the end? So it was like lots of little short films as I worked through it. So I was able to do it in bits, and it actually worked surprisingly well. We only had one case of haircuts being slightly iffy, but nobody noticed it because there was 25 minutes in between the two scenes. And then my plan was get the thing shot, which was the hard bit for me. And then the editing, I kind of know what I'm doing with the editing. That was fun. Once I got it into that stage, I was fine with it. I didn't know that I was going to be doing the special effects as well. I didn't do every single thing on the special effects, but we didn't have a lot of money. And I just thought if you want it, I had to learn how to do certain special effects up to a standard. And I did. And it took me years. But we did it. So that was kind of how I managed it. And then once the film's shot, you're absolutely exhausted. It took me years to get this thing. I got it across the finish line. Got the sound done. We got an 80s pop star to sing the song. She's in the film. Victoria Wilcox, absolutely brilliant. I met a guy who'd worked at Abbey Road, and he helped me with do the mixing of the sound, and we found a composer, and I just kind of got this thing together and just worked through it every day, just working through it, as well as trying to do a day job and pay the bills and things. And that was it. And eventually, but then you get to the end of it, you're exhausted, and then you've got to get it distributed, which was another new level of pain and suffering, I can tell you. But I did it. We got it out there. We got it in cinemas, and it got released. Unfortunately, COVID came along just as it was about to do more in cinemas, but we got it in the cinemas anyway, just before that nightmare happened.
Thank you. And I think you've sort of answered this next question about what drew you to the sci-fi and action film genres and your influences with the Star Wars and John Williams. So I wonder if there's any other big influences that you've had, or maybe recent action films that you've enjoyed, or if you're more of an old school.
I feel a good film's a good film. I mean, Star Wars was huge for me, but I lived in the 80s. We had a great array of very, very bold, ambitious films, and some of them are a bit dated now, but we had Aliens and Terminator and James Cameron, all of his films, and so I was never much into people I like Tarantino, but that was never really my thing. I prefer kind of fantasy and silly action in a way, really kind of nonsense stuff that's fun and entertaining as opposed to anything too heavy, I think.
Amazing, thank you. How do you get creative inspiration when writing?
Okay, right. It's interesting. Writing I find very, very hard. You write, don't you? You know the pain of writing. I find it really hard to look at that blank page. Is really difficult. And what I've learned over the years is, and this is my own technique, and this works for me. I get up really early in the morning, so I might get up at 5 o'clock, and I have everything prepared. So the laptop prepared. I have all my notes and even the coffee in the cup, ready. So I kind of fall out of bed in the morning, set the alarm, fall out of bed before anybody else gets up, go downstairs, stick the cat out, and just get to the laptop and just start bashing it out. And and if you're doing it over a certain period of time, just literally turning up and just grinding through it. I don't worry about editing it, or I don't worry too much about grammar and spelling. Just get it on the page. and then I'll do an hour, hour and a half. And it's amazing what comes to you when you're completely switched off, have no internet, no interruption. You know, my wife's still in bed, the kids aren't about. So I'm able to sort of, magic happens. It's a bit hard to explain, but it's a bit like you turn up. Your job is to sit there and just type the stuff, and something visits you and puts this kind of magical thing inside you, and it comes down your arms and it comes out of you, and it's incredible. And it's really hard to explain. Then what happens is, everybody gets up, chaos, breakfast, people, lifts getting over, real life, internet, and then I look back at what I've written, and it's like, crikey, who wrote that? It's like someone else has written it. It's very bizarre. But so that works for me. So I'm an early bird. Some people work later. Some people like working to the night, but I'm an early bird. But I don't kill myself as well. I only do a bit a day.
That's very interesting to hear, thank you.
Okay.
I also wondered about, in your films, you often work with actors and producers, film composers. How do you find this, and how do they bring your script to life, and how do you find working with them?
Your job as a director is to get good people. This is Tarantino, so I feel like I'm quoting Tarantino now. You may have seen this, and he was absolutely right. He said you get really good people and you explain exactly what you want to them to get them to put your vision down. The thing is, when you've got actors, it's really interesting what they can bring to the table. And I learned this on my recent film. You write your script, you've got kind of an idea, that he starts here, he goes through all this thing, his character arc, he learns that something, and then by the end of it, he's a changed character, and that motivates what he does. But then you give that to a really good actor, and a really good actor takes that on board. That's when the magic happens. And we saw Mark Bayliss. I saw him absolutely bring this guy to life, and he plays not a particularly nice character. This is my new film of Infinite Worlds, and he's so good in it, and it's kind of all internalized. It's hard to explain. It's all up here, and he says his lines, and in some cases he throws them away, but you absolutely believe what he's saying, and he's just taken the words that I put on the page and made them his own. It was fantastic. Personally, as a low budget producer, what I learned years ago, and I don't want to sound negative, but when you bring someone in and you call them a producer, unless they brought the money in, I don't call people producers now. They're associate producers, executive producers, assistant producers, because once you call someone a producer, they become power crazy. And start taking over. I've noticed this a few times. So I just tend to, that sounds like an ego trip. It's not. It's just something I learned along the way. If they're coming with lots and lots of money and distribution in place, then they can be the producer by all means. So that's kind of how I work with it. But it's just, it is a case of finding really the right people, the right temperaments to work with, and just bringing it all together, really.
Amazing. And do you find, building off that point about the actors, do you find you have to tell them what mood to evoke and how they should act, or do they kind of just intuit it from the script?
No, that's interesting. No, you don't tell them how to act. What I did years ago, my first one was, can you say it like this? And they hate that. If it's a green screen thing, and I might go, look, it's over there, it goes round there, and it's that kind of thing. Yeah. Or it might be like, look, he walks in, they have a conversation here, she goes that way, he goes that way. That's the level of direction. I might say to him, remember in the next scene, this happens here because you feel like that in the next scene. But most of them are absolutely on that before I am. But it's important as a director to make sure you're on the same page. Otherwise you turn up, where are we? And you don't want to do that. I always prepare as much as possible before I get in the room with them, to be honest. So.
Amazing. What are you most excited about in the current film industry?
Yeah, well, the film industry is in a strange place at the moment, but it has been over the decades since it was created. It peaks and troughs. You have amazing moments. Personally, I think there's been too much reliance on the American film industry. I believe the British film industry has become a bit of a facility house for America, and it's all to do with money. And of course, President Trump is now talking about tariffs and things, which, that's going to mess everything up. However, I think for independent cinema, it's a really good time. It's very, very exciting. The opportunities are really interesting, especially with Anora. winning the Oscar this year, and that was a proper, I mean, it was a bit slightly bigger budget than his first film, but he's, that was really good for independent. So I'm big on independent. I think I'm really excited about releasing my film. I've got a lot of hopes that it's going to be good. So I do feel very optimistic, but I just think there's big changes coming and stuff personally. But
and do you think in Britain, often I've heard that TV series are much more productive and successful than films? Do you think that's still the case, or is likely to change because of Anora and films like that?
Possibly. I mean, it's very difficult. I can't really talk too much for TV now because I feel so far away from TV. I mean, a lot of the big shows we get are American funded. A lot of the British films are American funded, which is great in one way. But it's but if that drops off, I mean, the BBC and ITV throw what they can and they make these amazing series. But even things like Doctor Who is now all American, and so
really?
the new series is all Disney. I think it's Disney. I think it is. Don't quote me on that, okay? But I think it is Disney, and so I don't know, but I think there's room for everything with all the streaming platforms now. There's certainly opportunities for people to, you can make a very, very low budget $5,000 indie film, and you can get it on Amazon Prime, and it'll sit next to a big Hollywood blockbuster, and as mine did, as Invasion Planet Earth did, which is good in one way. The problem is if they watch Interstellar and then they watch Invasion Planet Earth, they're like, the two don't really kind of look too good together. But
I do have a question actually about AI and whether you think that, because obviously AI in film is becoming more powerful. Maybe people don't respect it so much in the industry, but do you think that there's potential there for like action films and special effects, or what's your take on
certainly
this?
I don't think I might be wrong here because it's moved the subject. I don't think it's going to be like, I want a film about a spaceship that lands on Mars and they all die and a film will come out. I don't think we're going to get that personally, but certainly from a tools point of view, like, I've got this robot face, can you add goggle eyes to it and click click click, I think it might be like that. But I think if it's used in the right way, I think it quite be good. I think it's quite exciting. Certainly, some of the things I've seen, I don't think you can really, when it comes to scripts, I don't think you can really match the heart of a human being telling an emotional story. I don't know. It's very close, but I don't know. It always seems everything I've seen is a bit bland. I think they look amazing. Some of the special effects shots, like God, but it's all a bit soulless. I don't know what you guys think, but.
It lacks the maker's hand.
It does.
Yeah.
It's just empty, but impressive.
Yeah.
So, but if a good filmmaker with creative ideas and vision took those tools and gave it his edge, I think it would be quite interesting. And we'll see those.
I agree, because there was that kind of controversy about The Brutalist because they used some AI on the background, and there's been quite a bit. Yeah, so they had a bit of controversy on that.
Okay.
What has been the most challenging moment of your career so far?
Oh God. Okay. Well, there's lots of challenges. It's all money, I'm afraid. It's really quite boring. But you want to. Well, first of all, working in the film industry is a challenge. And if you guys, some of you go and work in the industry, you will find it quite challenging because you're in work one minute, you're flat out, and then there's nothing for 3 months, and then it's busy again. So you get this kind of roller coaster of work. Regarding challenges, for me, it's always been, I want to make a film. How do I get the money for it? And it's very, very difficult. And I've had to learn my own sort of techniques. I've never really kind of hit it off with the industry in a strange way. I got a little bit of money from the BFI years ago, but I've never been able to sort of like get in the door. I don't know if it's a working class thing or I don't know. But anyway, I've or maybe they just don't like what I do. I like commercial films personally. What was the question again?
So it was the most challenging.
Most challenging. Yeah, there were points in Invasion Planet Earth. I was just saying this film took me nearly 20 years to make. When I'd shot half of it and I had no idea how the hell I was going to finish it. I really didn't, and I'd be crowdfunding on Facebook and get a couple of quid in. I'm like, this is never going to work. Mm-hmm. So that was very challenging. And then there's also, you've got to pay the rent as well. You've got to pay your own So trying to sort of balance it out has been a bit of a challenge, especially when I had 2 young kids. Trying to make a sci-fi movie in the Midlands was a challenge, but I did it. I don't quite know how I did it, but I did it. So that was probably challenging. It's always been money.
Are the BFI funds are not that, are they quite tricky to get then?
They yes, very tricky, and they just don't have the money. It's a shame. I think there should be something like all this American money that's come in. A little bit of that should be filtered off and fed to the independent sector. It might be, maybe it is, I don't know, but it's been a challenge.
Which project that you've worked on are you the most proud of? I think you might have answered this with Invasion Planet Earth.
Well, I made a film. On IMDb it's called Driven, but it's actually called Written in Blood. I made that in 1997, and it was a proper film, shot on film, and it's a long story. I made it for a distributor. It was a nightmare to make. 28 years later, I managed to buy the rights back, so I've renamed it Written in Blood, and it's out on Amazon now. That I'm quite proud of. I don't necessarily like the film that much, but it's sounds a bit kind of a weird irony there. But I'm very proud of it as an achievement. But Invasion Planet Earth, yeah, that is my baby. But the new one's going to be really good. Of Infinite Worlds is going to be really, really good. So.
And you mentioned distributors quite a lot. Is there advice about that you have to people about working with distributors, or the experiences you learned from that?
Yes, yeah. Now I love my distributors, the UK ones and the American ones, but you kind of you're swimming in shark-infested waters with distribution, especially some of these American sales agents. They they go around, they scoop up these low-budget movies that can't get distributed, and they put them out and then tend not to pay people, and it's a bit nasty. And I got a little bit stung. And it's funny thing was, every filmmaker I know has been stung in some way by distribution, and so I went in my eyes very wide open, and I still managed to get ripped off by one company. This is recorded, so I don't care. I don't care. So the thing is, what was really annoying about it was this American company, was recommended to me by a distributor, who then proceeded to get ripped off by them as well. So so you've got to go with your eyes wide open. Nowadays, there is a fantastic organisation called filmhub.com, and what they do is they're like a very modern distributor. But what they do, they don't distribute a movie as in the traditional way. What they do is they market your films to streaming platforms right across the world. So you upload your film there, and it's all automated, which is really good. And then they got me on Amazon Prime. They got me, but in those kind of really odd, like France and Germany and Spain and all over the place. All these little tiny territories, and you don't get, and so you've got this like distributor that likes little low budget horror films, for example, somewhere in Lithuania. They'll take your film on, and they've got their little niche audience, and your film goes to that niche audience, and you don't get buckets of money, but you get little bits of income. But what's interesting is collectively it starts to add up, and certainly with my other film, Written in Blood, I had no ties on that, so I just thought, well, stick it everywhere. I've been seeing a little bit of income, not masses, but it's a few £100 a month, and you think, well, that's a film I made 28 years ago, and it's still dripping in a bit of cash. But I'm saying to a lot of young independent filmmakers, get your film on Filmhub. It gets it out there. You've not got any. When you sign to a distributor, you tend to sign your rights away for 10 years, so you can't sell it to that country for 10 years or something. Filmhub, if you selling it all over the place, and then say it's in Spain, and then the distributor in Spain wants it, you sign with them and you tell the Filmhub, look, don't do it in Spain. They'll switch off Spain, and the distributor will do it in Spain for you. So it's really good. It's really good.
Do they tend to deal with more feature-length films, or is it short films?
They are more featured. Depends how short your short is.
Yeah, okay.
If it's
over 25 minutes.
If it's probably over, if it's over, I think you're probably more. It's worth a try. It.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that's a question that's asked a lot, but I tend to just deal with features, so I don't quite know that one. But they're quite approachable. Well, they are. You email them, it takes a few days to get a response, but they will answer that question for you. And there's loads of stuff in the Q&A and the website.
Thank you.
It's filmhub.com.
I wondered also if you have advice about moving from short films, because I imagine some people here have been producing and making short films, to feature films and getting into that. It's quite a big jump.
Yeah, short films are brilliant and they're a fantastic way of really cutting your cloth. Feature film is another level of pain and suffering. It's the length of it that you don't that people think. I think it's just like doing 5 short films. Yes, it sort of is, but when you're editing this thing, it's 10 times as long. And to shoot it, it's great that you're on a short film, and you have a real high when you do like 3 or 4 days filming. When it's 3 or 4 weeks filming, and I mean I've been so exhausted on everything I've done. But on Invasion, I had such a hard time with Written in Blood. Written in Blood nearly killed me. I'm 28 and I went grey. I was a wreck. So on Invasion, I was able to do it in chunks. So in a way, it was a bit like lots of short films put together, and big spectacles, but only for like a few days. So it didn't kill me as much. So there's that to take in mind, and the more organised and the more prepped you can be. Things like knowing your locations. So if you're doing a feature film, you spend a couple of days in there, have a few days off, then you go to that location, have a few days off, then you go to that location. If you can make that work, and of course you need all this money, you need all the money to pay for it up front, which is tricky as well. But needs must. If you want to make your film, you just got to find a way.
I've got 2 final questions before I open up to some audience questions.
Okay.
But I first wanted to ask, in what direction do you think action in sci-fi films are going nowadays?
Oh my word. That wasn't on your list, was it? No, what direction? I in a way, I think we've kind of perhaps overdone it with spectacle in these films. I know that's probably nonsense actually. But if anyone seen Andor recently, that was really good sci-fi, but it was very drama orientated, good characters. I think that's where we're going. Really good stories that move and inspire and really kind of touch you. And yeah, I think that's where we're going now. More for story, good characters. If you notice now, there's not so many movie stars now. We've got Tom Cruise and that. They're all, there is a young generation, but it's very easy. You don't necessarily need a movie star in a film, which you did a few years ago, to sell it. So there's certainly a lot of opportunity out there, certainly.
And finally, if you met yourself at the start of your career with the advice and experience you have now, what would you say?
Okay, Simon, sit down. I would say keep going, don't lose the enthusiasm. In fact, that enthusiasm that you have as a young person when you see movies and or things that really inspire you, whatever it might be, you've got to kind of remember that energy and keep it in a little pot and stick it on your shoulder, because occasionally, as you're battered through life, you need to whip it out and remind yourself. I go back to when I saw the first Star Wars in the cinema and just like, that's my little bit of magic that keeps me going. But I would say to myself, don't lose the enthusiasm. And certain people will come along and make promises, but you've got to follow your own instinct. And the times where I've not followed my instincts are the times I've normally gone down the wrong roads. And I wouldn't say I've made any mistakes. Well, I made loads of mistakes, because I think the road to success is littered with failure, as they say. It's good to fail occasionally, to get it wrong, and you will get it wrong occasionally. But it's all part of getting it right. You've got to kind of fail a few times to get it right. So don't be too hard on yourself. That's what I say. Don't be too hard on yourself, Simon. And some people, you need to know when to let go. There was a lot of people I really believed in and followed, and it never really happened. And so, but that's hindsight, isn't it? There you go. That's the way it goes. So.
Amazing. Thank you
so
right? much. I'm opening up to questions if anyone has anything they'd like to ask.
Silence. Hello, sir.
So I was wondering, how would you go about financing your first bigger independent project?
Okay, that's the golden question. Well, you've got a couple of options really. The first one is, can you fund it yourself? Right. That's a serious kind of question. I started, because I could never really afford anything. I could afford it at the time, but not to do it properly. I started with crowdfunding, and it was about 2012 when I did my first crowdfunding campaign, and Kickstarter was new, and I saw some other people doing it and being quite successful. So I set it up. I was on Facebook and Twitter. I didn't have a massive following, but I said, I'm trying to raise the full amount. Great, 60 grand, I was trying to raise 60,000. Put it out there, and it was Kickstarter. And with Kickstarter, if you don't hit your target, you don't get anything. The money just doesn't come in. I managed to raise 5.5 grand on that, and then it failed. But it was such a lot of work. However, I realised there are people that will back you, and so I then started crowdfunding it in chunks. So I'd raise 5 grand, go and shoot a bit, raise 6 grand, shoot a bit, and I was able to do that, and it worked quite well. And a lot of the same people kept coming in and giving me small amounts of money, but it enabled me to shoot about a third of the film, and then eventually some investors came in, and we got various tax breaks. I was learning this thing as we go. So I'm quite big on crowdfunding, I think, but the really important thing to remember, there's a couple of things to remember. The first thing is, if you're going to crowdfund, you need an audience, obviously, but it starts with your family and your friends, I'm afraid. You've got to have the courage to say to your mum and dad and your mates, guys, can you chip in a little bit? Because if it starts off raising a little bit at the start, it looks better for other people and they kind of jump on board. The other thing, and this is really important, is if someone gives you money, you've got to be really loyal to that person, and you've got to honour what you say. One of the things, I've backed about 30 campaigns in the last 12 years, and probably 2 of them have actually responded, said thank you, and then give me an update of how the film's going. Some of them do it for a couple of times, then it just fizzles out, and I think, where's the film? Did you finish it? You know, so I try and be the guy that does honour that, and what I've found is over 10, 12, no more than that, 14, 15 years now, the same people follow me and they keep backing me and they keep backing me and they keep sharing my events. They were the ones that went out and bought, one guy, they all sent me pictures of the DVD when the DVD came out pre-COVID. I had all these shops of people shop photographs of people in Asda with my DVD. One guy with a basket of about 5 DVDs in there, and it's like, well, you can't buy that loyalty. These guys were so supportive, and so I've been very thankful and feel very fortunate. And so there you go. It's a really long-winded answer, sorry. So crowdfunding is a good place to start. Anyone else? Hello.
Hello. Thank you for the talk.
Pleasure.
I was just wondering about what it's like to write human characters in sci-fi films. Because sometimes when you go to a sci-fi movie, you start feeling like, oh, this is a human story with some sci-fi in it, rather than it being a sci-fi
Yeah.
story with some humans in it. I think a good example of that was Godzilla -1. When people started
Oh yes, yeah. Sorry, I was thinking of the other one. Yeah.
You know, the US took this Godzilla character and they pumped out like 3 or 4 films
Yeah.
about this big monster and just littered it with some humans. But Japan went back to its roots.
It was great. It was really about kamikaze pilots and the guilt
Yeah.
of all that,
I
wasn't
was
it?
crying at the end of that film. I was like, I never pictured myself crying at like a kaiju.
No, and the monster was kind of like a side. It was like a metaphor in a straight. That was a really good example. I learned a lot on Invasion Planet Earth. It is very story driven, and so with of Infinite Worlds, the new one, it is very much it's a family story set within a sci-fi environment. I do cut to the exteriors every 5 minutes of spaceships flying over, and they jump in spaceships, and so there's all the action stuff. But I've tried to make it very character driven. Yeah. So, and how do I find it? Yeah, it's hard. I'm not very good with dialogue. I've realised I'm not very good at writing dialogue. So I get the story right, and I got a friend in to come and help and give it a sort of dialogue polish this time around. So. But it's worth doing. It's worth doing.
So any other questions or? Oh, well.
Is that another question, or was that?
Yeah, another question. I guess I'm just wondering. Apparently, I mean, you're very good at multitasking, and you have amassed all of these skills in very different domains: editing and the actual filmmaking, and the screenwriting. I mean, how did you learn all of this? Did you learn
Oh, my word.
by doing, or do you work in?
I just have to be. When we shoot, I have a cameraman.
Okay.
I have a cameraman and I have a sound man. I can't. I mean, I've done it, but oh my god, I don't want to do that. But it's the editing really. I learned in children's TV how to put films together.
Okay.
And when you're directing, if you know about editing, you know that you're going to need a close up of that guy, and you need that guy, and you need that bit. And I work with really good people, so we get the basics. and then someone says there's a great shot here, and you go, oh yeah, so we shoot that, and it's kind of a collaborative effort. But yeah, knowing how to edit is the key, because if you know how to put it all together, otherwise you end up with a bucket load of shots, and oh my god, where do I start?
Yeah.
You know, as a man of experience, and so being an editor really helps. It really helps, and I know. Look, I just need a close up here because he looks at her and she does this. Blah, blah, blah. So we need to see the hand grab the gun and that sort of thing. So that's kind of it really. And I try and be as organised as I can before each shoot. I have a saying that I said to myself years ago: when you get on set, know your first setup or your first shots, because there's nothing worse than getting there and you go, what should we do today? And the whole crew are kind of looking at you. So you go, right, we're gonna, and I always start with the widest shots first when directing. Start with a wide shot. So to get the actors in the room, we walk through the scene, and then all the camera team and the sound team come in, and I said, right, he walks in there, and we do it so they can see. They then go away and light the scene, and the sound guy sets up. The makeup takes the guys away and get them. Oh, it's my phone. Sorry about that. The makeup people come in. John, don't bring me one. Sorry, that was John Fox, everybody. Anyway, so then the actors go away, they get made up and dressed and stuff. Then they come back and we start with a wide shot, and then we do mid shots, then we do close-ups, and then you do the really close-ups with hands, and the whole crew kind of comes in with you, and you bring all the lights in. That's quite good. I used to be not as organised as that, and you just shoot this and shoot that, and it's very chaotic. Whereas that way, everything kind of moves closer in, if you know what I mean. So all the lights come in and stuff. So.
Would you say that this was your experience recently in filming of Infinite Worlds, or is there anything about it being on set that you think you could share?
Well, certainly working with, I had a really good cameraman, Gordon, on Invasion, and on my first film. We met on my first film. He's a top British cameraman, a guy called Gordon Hickey. He had a bit of prostate cancer, so he started on Infinite, but then retired. He just couldn't. He wasn't very well, poor old Gordon. But he's all right now. But I learned so much from him, because he was shooting Holby City, and he shot some really big film called Leon the Pig Farmer, a big 90s movie, and load of things. And I learned so much from him. And he was so charismatic and funny. He was brilliant with everybody and really kept a nice, good, happy atmosphere on set. But I'd be going, well, listen, and he'd go, he's Scottish accent. He said, Simon, if you've come back here again, make sure you get these. And he kind of taught me, he mentored me all the way through it. That was very, very helpful. And then he came back again on the next film, so I did all right, obviously. He was happy.
Amazing.
So.
Any final questions? Oh.
Hello, sir.
In post-production, because obviously you have all this footage and you have all these things you have to like sift through.
Yeah.
How do you stay on top of just the volume of things you have to go through while you're editing yourself?
It's it's a good question. It is organisation. Start off, sync all the rushes, and then just make sure you've got it all logged. So I name every clip, scene 1, shot 1, section 2, and just do everything. Make sure the sound. So all of that, and that I did all that on mine from ages, weeks logging all this stuff in. But now when I did the fine cut, I made it so much easier. And also you remind yourself of what you've done, what you've shot. Oh, I've got that shot there, and then when I edit the scenes together, do you know what auditioning takes is? Have you heard of a thing called auditioning takes when you're editing? Well, it's really cool. So you say, right, let's take the close up of the guy, and he does 3 or 4 takes, and he says, bit of acting here. He says, stop, that is not the way. Then you go, take 1, and then he does it again. And what I do is I take the lines and I literally butt them together. So I've got 3 versions or 4 versions of him saying that line. Then I cut to the girl and she's saying it again. And then you go, if I take that bit there, that's a really good take there. That works really well with that one. And you start putting it together, but I keep everything. So when we get to the fine cut stage, we go, what was the other take like? And I'm able to just go back to that kind of master assembly with all the audition takes. And I learned that from my friend Eddie, who cut Mission Impossible. He taught me about that years and years ago. We worked together years ago. So he got nominated for an Oscar. Anyway, so I learned. Not I'm jealous or anything. No. So I learned a lot from people like him and just working with good people. So And that's it. Just stay organised. That's all you can do. Anyone else?
Any last questions? No? Okay. Well, this was amazing. Thank you so
Oh,
much.
thank
It
you.
was so great to have you here to speak to us, and I think we all learned a lot. So,
Oh, I
everyone,
hope
please
so.
give up for Simon Cox.